Good morning, guys. Yesterday, we understood the introduction part for Spring Boot. We discussed about what is the Spring Boot, what are the advantages available in the Spring Boot, and how many ways we can create our Spring Boot application. So Spring Boot is extension for existing Spring framework. By using Spring Boot, we can develop applications very quickly that suppose for rapid application development. Spring Boot is one approach to develop Spring-based applications with less configurations. When we use Spring Boot, there are several advantages available, like form starters available, auto configuration is there, embedded servers available, actuators available, and component scanning is also available. So when I say form starters, lot of dependencies, instead of configuring lot of dependencies, we can add just one form starter that will provide the configuration required for the project. So what is auto configuration? Based on the form starters we are adding in the project, Boot will identify configuration required for the project and it will provide that configuration for us. And the next one, embedded servers concept is available. In order to run the web application, you no need to download and set up a project. Okay, so you don't need to download and set up the server to run the project. Servers will be taken care by Spring Boot only. Spring Boot will support for three types of servers: Tomcat, Jetty, and Netty. And in the Spring Boot, we have a concept called actuator. Actuators are used to monitor our application, health of the application, threads of the application, heap memory of the application we can monitor by using actuators concept. And the next one, component scanning is available. Component scanning means Boot will identify Spring Beans available in the project and it will create the objects for those Spring Bean classes. Okay, theoretically we are good. What is the Spring Boot and what are the advantages with the Spring Boot? And the next one, how to create one Spring Boot project. So there are two ways available to create the Spring Boot project. One is by using initializer website. Directly you create the project and you download the project. Start.spring.io is the URL for the initializer website. Once you create the project by using initializer website, it will download the project in the zip file, and we need to import that project into Eclipse IDE or IntelliJ IDE. Eclipse and IntelliJ will not support for Boot project creation directly. IntelliJ will support, but you need to go for licensed version. If you purchase the license of IntelliJ, then you can create the Spring Boot projects directly. But we are using community version, so you can't create the project in the IntelliJ directly. Okay, then second approach is available, STS IDE, that is provided by Spring people only. To create the Spring Boot projects easily, you can go with the STS IDE, which is free of cost, right? When you use STS IDE to create the project, internally, that STS IDE will communicate with the initializer website only and it will download the project. So easily, if you want to create the Boot application, STS IDE is the best option. All right, how to set up STS IDE in our system? So you need to download STS jar file from the website, Spring Toolsuit website, download that jar file, then run that jar file. Then you will get the STS IDE. You can open that IDE to create the project. Suppose if you want to go with the IntelliJ IDE, you need to download this IDE and install that IDE. So then create the project from the initializer website, download that project and import that project into your IDE. All right. Now let us go here. Today we are going to understand how to create Boot application. So today our agenda, creating Spring Boot application, playing with the form starters, understanding Spring Boot project folder structure, executing Spring Boot projects, running Spring Boot application, and understanding internals of Spring Boot. internals of Spring Boot. So this is the agenda for our today's session. So I'm going to show you how to create boot application and how to add the POM starters, how to remove the POM starters from the boot application, and understanding project folder structure, what kind of files will be available in the Spring Boot, where to write the Java code, where to keep the properties, okay, how to add the dependencies. We are going to play with the folder structure of the Spring Boot application, and we will see how to run the boot application, and we will understand what all the internals available, how Spring Boot application will execute internally. All right. And remember, if you want to create a boot application, build tool is mandatory. Directly you cannot create the boot application. You need to use either Maven or Gradle in order to create the Spring Boot application. You need to create either Maven or Gradle in order to create our Spring Boot applications. Now, I am using my STS IDE, guys. Yesterday we installed STS IDE. By using this STS IDE, I will create my first boot application. So file, new, there is an option called Spring Starter Project option is available. Spring Starter Project is nothing but Spring Boot application. Click on Spring Starter Project. So it is connecting with the start.spring.io website. So project name, I'm giving the name as 01 Spring Boot application. Giving the name as 01 Spring Boot application and type of the project. So I want to create the project by using Maven as a build tool. You can use Maven or you can use Gradle as a build tool. I'm going with the Maven as a build tool. Packaging. Do you want to create a standalone project or you want to create web project? How you want to package your Spring Boot project for the execution? I want to package my project as a jar file only. Okay. The next one, Java version. We are using Spring Boot 3.x version. For that, minimum requirement is Java 17. Okay. Then language is Java. All right. Now group ID. Group ID nothing but company name. Which company developing this project? Okay. Ashok IT is developing this project now. Artifact ID, your project name. Basically, artifact ID, nothing but your project name, version of the project, description of the project, package. So to develop the Java classes, we will use the packages concept. So what is the package you want to create for your project? So you can give your company domain name as a package name in.ashok IT. If you are working for some Oracle company, then you will use com.oracle. If you are working for TCS, com.tcs. Like this, your company domain name, we are going to use as a package name. So here I'm giving my package name as in.ashok IT. Okay. So when you are creating the boot application, you select Maven as a build tool, packaging type as jar, Java version 17, language is Java, group ID, artifact ID, and package name. Package names are very important in the Spring Boot, guys. And so many people will do the mistakes with the package names in the Spring Boot. So in the Spring Boot, component scanning is available. What is the component scanning? Scan the classes. That component scanning will work based on package name only. If you don't write the package names properly, your classes will not be considered as Spring Beans. Okay. Now I'm giving the package name as in.ashok IT. Then click on next. Version of the Spring Boot 3.3.2 is the latest version of the Spring Boot. Now I want to add the dependencies. Okay. So as we discussed, if you want to develop a web application, we need to select one dependency called Spring Web dependency. Okay. So whatever the dependency you want, you can search here. If you want to MySQL driver, type MySQL. MySQL driver will come. If you want to Oracle, then Oracle driver will come. If you want to security, then you type it. It will give you Spring Security here. Okay. If you want to work with Kafka, Apache Kafka, then Apache Kafka dependency will be available. So what dependencies you want for your project, you can search for those dependencies here. Now I am going with a web dependency. Spring Web I am selecting. One dependency I am taking. Okay. And next one, there is another dependency called DevTools dependency is available. There is another dependency called DevTools dependency. So the purpose of DevTools dependency is whenever you make some code changes, server will be restarted automatically. Your application will be restarted automatically when you make some code changes in the project. If you don't add this DevTools, every time when you change the code, stop the server and start the server. You need to redeploy manually every time. Instead of that, I'm going to add one dependency called DevTools dependency. What is the purpose of DevTools? Restart the application. Whenever some changes happened in the code, our application will be restarted automatically if you use DevTools dependency. And we are having web dependency. What is the purpose of web dependency? To develop a web application, and it will provide embedded container. What is the meaning of embedded container? Server. For every web application, server is required. Server will be provided by the web starter. What is the default server? Tomcat. How many servers we can use? Jetty, Netty, Tomcat. By default, we are getting Tomcat as embedded server. Okay. Now I am selecting two dependencies. Next, you see, this is the URL. It is connecting with the initializer website only to create the project. Click on finish. So with this, our first Spring Boot project got created. Now we are using Maven as a build tool. So it is going to follow Maven folder structure. It is downloading project from the initializer website. Project is getting created. Downloading from initializer website and project is getting created. So first time when you are creating this, internet connection is required because it has to download everything from the internet. Yes. So finally, my project creation got completed. So this is the structure of our Spring Boot application. This is the structure of our Spring Boot application. So in the Spring Boot application, we are using Maven as a build tool. First thing that we need to check, form.xml. For every Maven project, form.xml will be available. This form.xml is called Maven configuration file. This form.xml is called as Maven configuration file. So Spring Starter parent form is available. Spring Boot version 3.3.2 we are using. Then this is our project information. Then scroll down. Which version of Java it is using? Java version 17 I am using for that. Then here if you see dependencies section available, boot dependencies, web dependency available, DevTools dependency available, test dependency available. For the dependencies, I am not writing the version number. Version number will be available for the boot parent starter. That parent starter version number applicable for the child dependencies here. Inheritance concept is available. Parent dependency available, child dependency available. Version number is available for the parent dependency. Child dependencies will be taking the same version number. So when you are adding form starters, you no need to specify the version number because parent version number will be applicable for the child dependencies. So like this form.xml, we are able to add two dependencies. One is web starter, another one is DevTools. Tomorrow, I want to security also for my project. Then what I will do? I will add Spring Boot Starter Security. Spring Boot Starter Security I will add. I want to add Mail Starter. Then I will add Spring Boot Starter Mail Dependency. I want to add Actuator. Then I will do Spring Boot Starter Actuator like this. Actuate like this. I want to go for data JPA. Then I will do Spring Boot Starter data JPA. So like this, what type of project you want to develop, what functionalities you want to develop in the project, Based on that, you need to add the form starter. So what is the purpose of web starter? Web application development, embedded container we want. Security starter for authentication and authorization. Mail starter to send the emails. Actuator to monitor the application. JPA starter to communicate with the database. Dev tools to restart the server. Test starter for unit testing. If you want to perform unit testing of your application by using JUnit, then we are going to use test starter like this. Okay, where we can find out all these dependencies, guys. As we discussed, there is a website called mvnrepository.com is available. Now, I want Spring Boot actuator. Okay, go here. Spring Boot starter actuator is available. Click on this link. It will show you the latest version 3.3.2. Open that one. Now, this is the dependency which is available. They are giving version also. But do I need to write the version? No need to write the version. Do I need to write the version or I no need to write the version? I no need to write the version. Why we no need to write the version? Parent starter already having the version number. So any starter that you want for your project, you can search for those starters in a website called MVN repository. I want Spring Security starter. So what I will do? Spring Security. So now it is giving Spring Security directly here. Spring Security starter. So Spring Boot starter, you mentioned this point, starter. So Spring Security starter, search for that. So Spring Boot starter security is available. Latest version 3.3.2. Here, that dependency you can find out. Group ID, artifact ID version. Tomorrow, if you go for Gradle project, then Gradle dependency will be available like this. Maven dependency available, Gradle dependency also available. So you can create a boot application by using Maven or by using Gradle. Any one is mandatory. Without Maven, without Gradle, you cannot create the boot application. Are you able to follow me this? Yeah, perfect. So we are able to create that project. Pom.xml is available. Let me remove these dependencies, guys. We will go through them later point of time. So I hope you got the clarity. What is a POM starter? How to get the POM starters? How to add the POM starters? By using mvnrepository.com, you can get the POM starters and you can add the POM starters in our project. Is this clear? Good. Next one. After seeing the pom.xml, you can see there is one Maven dependencies folder is available. What all the dependencies we have added in the pom.xml, those jar files will be downloaded from the internet. You see, these many jar files are downloaded. Tomcat embed, Spring Web MVC, Spring Web, Spring Core, Spring Context, Spring Beans, Spring Boot, Spring Test, JUnit, SLF4j, Mockito, Micrometer, Log4j, JSON, Jackson. So many dependencies are downloaded. So am I downloading these dependencies? Maven downloading the dependencies? Maven downloading the dependencies. Based on our pom.xml configuration, Maven downloading the dependencies from the internet and adding to our project build path. If you don't want any dependency, you go to pom.xml and you can delete the dependency. Go to pom.xml and delete the dependency. If you want, you can add the dependency. When you add the dependency, Maven will download them from the internet, will give to our project. What all the jar files Maven is downloaded, we can see in the Maven dependencies folder. And next one, JRE. Minimum version of Java 17 is required if you are using Boot 3.x version. Currently, I'm using Spring Boot 3, which is latest in the market. For Spring Boot 3, Java 17 is mandatory. You check it. Your Java 17 is available or not. If it is not available, you go to your project, you right click, go to the build path, configure build path, then go to libraries, JRE, edit that, alternate JRE, you select that, which version of Java that you want to use it. Okay. So like this, you need to change the build path of your project. You make sure Java 17 is available as a build path. Form.xml, Maven dependencies, and JRE available for our project. Next one, main Java, main resources, test Java folders available. Main Java, nothing but, as we know already, to create the source code of our project. What all the Java classes you want to develop in the project, those Java classes will be available in the main Java folder. Any configuration files you want to create in the project, they will be available in the main resources folder. Any unit test classes you want to develop, like JUnits, they will go to test Java folder. Main Java, main resources, and test Java. So when we create Spring Boot application, Spring Boot project like this, if you create, you can see src/main/java, and you will see src main resources, and you will see src test Java, and you can see Maven dependencies, okay, and you can see one file called pom.xml. You will see one file called pom.xml. This is the folder structure of our Java Spring Boot project. Main Java folder will be available. Main resources folder will be available. Test Java folder, Maven dependencies, and pom.xml. Now, in the main Java, we are going to write source code of the project. Project source code we are going to write in the main Java. Project source code will be available in the main Java folder. And in the main resources folder, configuration files. Any XML file, any properties file, any YML file, like in the Spring Boot, YML files and properties files will be available. So if you want any XML file, that kind of any configuration files you want in the project, you can keep in the resources folder. And the test Java folder is available for unit test classes. Unit test classes, basically JUnits. They are called as JUnits. Maven dependencies. So any JUnit classes you want to develop in the project, you need to write in the test Java folder. Maven dependencies, jars downloaded. What all the dependencies you added in the pom.xml, those jar files will be downloaded by the Maven. Those jar files you can see in the Maven dependencies folder. And the next one, pom.xml file is available, which is called Maven configuration file. Pom.xml is not related to Spring Boot. Pom.xml is related to Maven. People may ask, sir, in the Spring Boot, there is no XML configuration. Why pom.xml is available? Pom.xml not related to Spring Boot. Pom.xml is related to Maven. So pom.xml file will be used by Maven tool to download the dependencies required for the project. Who will add the dependencies in the pom.xml? Programmer should add the dependencies. Whatever the dependency you add, Maven will download those dependencies for us. Are you clear with my point? Yep. So Spring Boot project folder structure. Spring Boot project folder structure. Yes, inside this project, you can see main Java folder. Here, project source code will be available. You need to create your Java classes in the main Java folder. Main resources, configuration files you have to create here. Test Java folder, unit test classes you have to create. Maven dependencies, jars will be downloaded here. Pom.xml, Maven config file will be available. And here in the Spring Boot, under main Java folder, guys, one class will be created by default, which is called application.java. By default, one Java class also will be available in the main Java folder. You see here in the boot application, when I go to main Java, package name I have given. In that package, there is one Java class also. Class name is application.java. So this is very important class in the Spring Boot project. Without this class, you cannot run the Spring Boot project. This class is main class of the Spring Boot. This class is called as start class of the Spring Boot. Spring Boot application will start from main method only. This main method is mandatory in order to run our Spring Boot application. So am I creating this class or it is coming by default? By default. So this class is called as main class, main or start class. That means the project execution will start from application.java. Okay, that is called as start class of the Spring Boot, or it is called as main class of the Spring Boot. We can also say entry point for the execution of our boot application. Application.java will act as entry point for boot application execution. Okay, along with this one, in the main resources, one file also will be available, guys. That is called application.properties file. Okay, any customization, any configuration that you want to do in the boot application, you can do that by using application.properties file. Application.properties. Nowadays, properties file is outdated. People are using YML. You can use application.properties or you can use application.yml also. But by default, boot will give you properties file. This properties file is used for configurations. For example, Tomcat server starting with 8080. I want to use 9090. That customization you can do by using this properties file. Instead of a properties file, you can go for YML file also. So properties files are outdated. In the market, trending is YML file. So we need to understand what is the difference between properties file and YML file. And in the course, we are going to use YML file only, which is the latest in the market. Okay. And along with this, there will be one Java class in the test Java, which is called application test.java. This is a JUnit class. This is a JUnit class available in the project. Okay. So this is the complete picture of our Spring Boot application. Main Java will be available. There we need to write our project source code. In the main Java, one Java class will be available by default, which is called application.java. That is called start class of our Spring Boot. We can also call it as main class of the Spring Boot. That is used to start the execution of the project. That is the entry point for boot application execution. And next one, main resources available. Configuration files we are going to keep. By default, one file will be available in the boot application, which is called application.properties. Then test Java will be available, which is used to develop unit test classes. Basically, JUnits we are going to keep in the test Java. By default, one test class also will be available. Next one, Maven dependencies. Jars downloaded here will be stored. Form.xml, Maven configuration file. Are you able to understand project structure now? Just observe that. If required, you can keep in the test resources. You can create that folder. It is not coming by default. It is not coming by default. You can create that folder. Test resources. We will discuss that. Both are used to store the data. Syntax is different. XML is old. YML is latest. Different. XML will store the data in the element format. YML will store the data in the key value format. we can add the Mockito dependency separately. You no need to remove. JUnit requires. JUnit will use Mockito. Are you clear now? Yeah. Good. With this, we are able to create our first Spring Boot project, main Java. In that package, application.java is available. So this is start class of the Spring Boot. Main resources, you can see application.properties is available. If you go to the properties, there is already one property available and templates available, static is available. If you are creating any web application, you need some HTML files, right? For web application, HTML files we will keep in the templates folder. Any images are available for your project, you can keep in the static folder. Okay. So inside the main resources, you can see there is a subfolder called static folder is available, and there is a subfolder called templates folder is available. So what is the purpose of this static folder? Images, CSS, anything. Images or CSS files or JavaScript files, images goes here. Okay. If you are using any HTMLs, then HTML files goes here. So any images, suppose logo I want to display, image I want to display, images we are going to keep in the static folder. HTML pages we are going to create in the templates folder. And properties file will be available for configuration changes. Any configuration you want to customize, for that you can go for application.properties. So SRC test Java unit test classes. Now if you see in the test Java, by default, there is one JUnit class is available. Spring Boot test class is available, which is used to perform unit testing of our application. Okay, then Maven dependency is available. Then pom.xml is available. Pom.xml is available. And here if you see, target is available. There is one folder called target folder is available. This target folder is called as output folder. Dot class files goes here. Whenever you write a Java program, that will be compiled into dot class file. The compiled dot class files will be available in the target directory. It is something like a bin directory of the project. Source code should be converted to bytecode. So source code means .java file. .java file will be compiled. Then .class file will be created. The .class files will be stored into target directory. Okay. Whenever the project is compiled, source code will be compiled into bytecode. That bytecode will be available in the .class file. The .class file will be stored into target directory. Okay. Let me go to my workspace location and let me show you. Yeah. So 45 SBMS workspace. In this first boot application, go to target. Inside the target classes in Ashok IT, what is this, guys? Dot class is available. Am I compiling? IDE will compile. If you create the program, if you create the class, IDE will compile your program automatically and it will generate the dot class file. Where it is storing the dot class file? Where it is storing the dot class file? Target. If I delete the target directory, what will happen? Again, it will compile. Again, will compile and will generate the dot class files. Now you see my target is available. I'm deleting the target directory. So once I delete the target directory and if I refresh my project, again target directory got created. Again, now target directory got created. Just now, target directory is created. What is there in this target directory? Dot class files are available. Okay. Once the project is compiled, then dot class files will be available in our target directory. Okay. So you can see the target directory is available. It is going to compile the project and it will store the dot class files in the target directory. So the source code will be available in the main Java. The bytecode will be available in the target directory. Configuration files will be available in the main resources. JUnit classes will be available in the test Java. Dependencies we are going to configure in the form.xml. Are you clear with my point? Yes. Now, what is start class of the Spring Boot? Very, very, very important interview question. What is start class of the Spring Boot? Application.java. Class name can be anything. By default, they will create that class with a name called application.java. That is entry point for boot application execution. What is the meaning of entry point? Start point. From there only project execution will start. From that start class only from that main class only project execution will start. That's why it is called as entry point for boot application execution. Are you clear with my point? Yes. Now, if you want to run the boot application, you can right click, run as Spring Boot app. So once you create, I am not changing anything. But as it is, I have created the project, I am running that. I have not done any changes. Okay. By default, when Java class is created, that Java class is called as start class of the project. That Java class is called as start class of the project. Online people, any doubts you have, you post in the chat box. At the end of the session, I will give you the option to unmute your mic. Mr. Harish or Harshrish, I don't know. What is that? Hemant and Harshrish, you are having some questions. At the end of the session, I will give the option to unmute your mic and you can ask your questions. Okay? Are you guys able to follow me? So Spring Boot, able to understand, easy, difficult? How can you say? We have not developed one project also. How can you say it is easy? Yeah. Teaching style is easy. Auto configuration, dependency injection. Okay. Good question. Good question. When you go for normal core Java, you will create a Java class with the main method. So as of now, what is your understanding? If you are executing a project from the main method, that is a standalone application. When you develop a web application, main method is not required. For the servlets, main method is required or not required? Not required. But in the Spring Boot, for any type of project, main method is mandatory. Whether it is a standalone application or whether it is a web application or whether it is a distributed application also, main method is compulsory. Boot application will start from the main method only. Servlet will be executed by the Tomcat server. Servlet you will deploy in the Tomcat server and Tomcat server will process the request. Here in the Spring Boot application, are you deploying in the Tomcat server? Tomcat server boot will start. So Spring Boot should start the Tomcat server. That logic is available in the main method. That is, main method is important here because boot process will auto configuration is there. What is the meaning of auto configuration? Boot will identify the configuration required for the application. So we need to start the main method. Inside the main method, if you observe, we are calling run method. We are calling the run method. In this run method, lot of code will be available. If I go inside the run method, this is the logic in the run method. In this logic, they will start IOC container. They will read the starter. Based on the starter, they will start the Tomcat server. They will provide the security. So to start the application, that main method is required. Whether it is a web application, whether it is a microservice, whether it is a standalone, whatever it is, it has to start from main method because inside the main method, we are calling the run method. Inside the run method, lot of code is available. We need to understand what is the logic available inside the run method also. That is called internals of the Spring Boot. I have given one point here. Internals of the Spring Boot. How Spring Boot project is working in the background. how the auto configuration is coming, how the IOC container starting, how the Tomcat is starting. For the servlet, main method not required because you will create a war file. That war file you will deploy in the Tomcat directly. But here we are not deploying the war file in the Tomcat. Tomcat server should start with the boot application. So you start the boot application, boot will start the Tomcat server, then user request will go to the Tomcat server. So that is the reason this main method is mandatory. This is a start class. This is also called as a main class. This is called as entry point for the boot application execution. If you run the boot application without this run method, there is no use. Because inside the run method only, the logic is available for the Spring Boot execution. So if this main method is removed, if the run method is removed, it is like a normal Java program. It is not like a Spring Boot project. So lot of code is available inside that run method. Inside that run method, IOC container logic available. Auto component scanning logics are available. Loading the Tomcat servers available. So many things will happen internally inside that run method. That's why it is mandatory. But even if you develop web application also by using Spring Boot, that main method should be there. That is the entry point for boot application. When you will get more clarity, if you understand the logic available inside the run method, then you will get the full clarity. To understand these 3 lines of code, we need to spend 1 to 2 days of time. Then you will get the full picture. What is the purpose of this main method? What is the purpose of this start class? Within 2 minutes, I can't tell you what is this start class. 2 days, 2 classes, 2 hours. Time is required to understand what is this start class, what is happening internally when we execute the boot application. Are you clear? We need to do the postmortem for this run method. We need to do the postmortem for the run method. We need to do the postmortem for this annotation also. Okay, when I open this annotation, here, there are so many other annotations also available. When I open that annotation, there are so many annotations available. Can you see this one? What is the annotation? Enable auto configuration. What is this one? So when you will understand this class, if you understand all these annotations, you will understand what is this annotation. And what is this run method? When you will understand the run method, if you understand all this logic, then you will understand the run method. So it's not easy. Lot of abstraction is there. So if you do the postmortem, then you will get the clarity what is happening in the start class of the Spring Boot. Are you able to follow me? So it will take time. If you want to get the clarity on the subject, you need to spend some time. We have done a lot of research on all these things. When we are working on the projects development, when we are taking the classes, I struggled a lot to teach my first Spring Boot batch because I have not attended Spring Boot classes anywhere. I have learnt Spring Boot on my own. How I learned Spring Boot on my own? I have debugged all this logic line by line and I understood how the Spring Boot is working internally. So after that, we are able to teach the Spring Boot classes to the people. So as part of our project's development, we have done the postmortem on these annotations. Array, what is this component scanning? What is the logic in the component scanning? What is this auto configuration? How auto configuration is working? What is this run method? What is the logic is available in the run method? What is the purpose of each line? They have developed it. We are understanding that. So I got the understanding. I got the clarity. What is happening in the run method? With that clarity, I am able to teach you the Spring Boot classes. So if for me, it took around 5 to 6 months of time to understand the Spring Boot. Because I have done a lot of research, my self-learning. For you, that much time is not required because I already got the clarity. Easily I can explain you what is that Spring Boot, how it is working internally. I am making the subject easy for you. I have struggled 6 months to get the clarity. Now I got the clarity. Within 2 to 3 months, I will give you that clarity. Are you getting my point? So if you know all these internals, then you will get the better understanding how the Spring Boot is working. So if you see for looking, it is just, sir, what is there? One Java class with main method. From last 5 months, we are writing public static void main. That is public static void main only. But in the background, 1000 lines of code is executing. So if you understand those 1000 lines, then you will understand what is this one line. For student mindset, this one line of code only. But as a trainer mindset, in the background, 1000 lines are working, 1000 lines are executing. That is called abstraction. So framework is providing that common logic for you. Starting IOC container, starting the loading the configuration file, creating the connection pool, starting the Tomcat server, deploying the project. It is only my requirement or universal requirement? Can I say it is a common logic for everybody? That a common logic providing by the framework. How the framework is providing the common logic? Inside the run method. You call the run method, the framework logic will execute. Can I say it is abstraction? For the programmer, Spring Boot project should be executed. Programmer want to run the Spring Boot project, but to run the Spring Boot project, lot of configurations are required. Instead of you are doing the configuration, Spring Boot is doing the configuration. That is called auto configuration. How that auto configuration is working? When you call the run method, that auto configuration will work. But if you go for Spring, you need to do that configuration. When you go for Spring Boot, run method will do that configuration for us. Run method will read your pom.xml. Run method will understand what all the dependencies you have added. If you add a web starter, run method will start the Tomcat server for you. If you add the JPA starter, run method will create the connection pool with the database. Now you see, I'm going to execute it. This is a main method, run as Java application or run as Spring Boot application. Okay, this is my Java class. Right click, run as boot application. Now go to the console. Failed to start. My project is not getting started. Can you read this one? It is failed. Why? Why it is failed? Spring Boot is using Tomcat as an embedded container because I have added a web starter. When I add a web starter, why we will add web starter? Just for time pass, huh? Just for time pass, we'll add the web starter. Huh? When we will add web starter? When you want to develop a web application. If you want to develop a web application by using Spring Boot, then only you will add a web starter. For web application, server is required. So if you add web starter, Spring Boot will think in the next level. Okay, this person is adding a web starter. That means he is developing a web application. To execute his web application, Tomcat server is required. It will start the Tomcat server. That is called auto configuration. Based on the web starter, it is trying to start the Tomcat server. Tomcat server will run on the port number 8080. But in my system, Oracle database is installed, which also uses 8080. Are you getting my point? Oracle database using 8080 port number. Tomcat also using 8080. Two programs cannot use the same port number. Two programs cannot use the same port number. Either I need to change database port number or I need to change Tomcat port number. Which is easy? Changing database port number is easy. Tomcat port number is easy. Tomcat. Is it Tomcat downloaded by me or it is taken care by Spring Boot? Now what I will do? Hey Spring Boot, you are giving the Tomcat for me. You are using 8080. Don't use 8080. You use 9090. I will tell to the Tomcat, you are using 8080. In my system, Oracle is available with 8080. You can't use 8080. You go with the 9090. That is called customizing the configuration. To customize that configuration, there is a file called application.properties file is available. Can you see this one? There is a file available which is called application.properties. Let me go to application.properties file. Let's inform to the Spring Boot to run the server based on 9090 port number. So you go to the application.properties file, server.port. Server.port is equal to 9090. That's it. So if I write this one line, boot will understand Tomcat server should start on the 9090 port number. Able to follow me? Yes. Now let's run this application, clear the console. Whenever you change, guys, remember one point. Whenever you change pom.xml or whenever you change properties file, just refresh your project. Just reload the project. Okay. Then go to the start class, right click, run as boot application. Now check the console. Now check the console. One logo is printed. This logo is called banner. This logo is called banner. Then see this one. Starting the application by using Java 17, loading the profiles. Tomcat is initialized with the 9090. Web application context. Earlier we have seen application context. Now we are seeing web application context. IOC container also started and Tomcat is ready to use with the port number 9090. Total it has taken 1 second of time to start our boot application. It took 1 second to perform auto configuration. So how these many things are executing in the background? Run method. Just because of the run method, these many things are happening in the project. Now tell me, if I don't write this main method, all these things will happen? No. It is mandatory or optional? Mandatory. It is mandatory. Now, simple. We are able to create the boot application and we can see one Java class is created. The Java class, which is created by default. When you create the boot application, one Java class will be created by default. That Java class is called as start class of the Spring Boot. What is the start class of the Spring Boot? Which is the entry point for the boot application execution. Okay, fine. Why the Tomcat server is started? For example, now go to the pom.xml. Go to pom.xml. Let me remove web starter. Okay, Control X. Web starter is removed. What are the dependencies available? DevTools, test. That's it. Now I have changed pom.xml. Okay, then what is happening here? Failing. Refresh. Let us do the Maven update. Right click, run as Maven update. Where is that Maven? Okay, when I remove that pom.xml dependency, it is failing. Let me add that. Web starter dependency, when I add, that's fine. It is compiling. Okay. So when I add this web starter, the code is getting compiled. When I remove it, it is not getting compiled. Fine. So if I remove this web starter from the pom.xml, then the web server will not be started. If I add this web starter, then only my Tomcat server is getting started. Run as boot application. Yeah. Tomcat server started with a port number of 9090. Now, let me go and make one simple method. I will write one annotation which is called REST controller. I'm writing one annotation called REST controller. Sir, what is, now see, when I change the code, automatically my server is restarted. Okay. Now, let me add one method here, public string message. Return. Yeah, just I'm writing one line at the rate get mapping. I'm writing get mapping, then slash. That's it. Now can you see server is restarting? Why the server is getting restarted? DevTools. We added one dependency called DevTools. Because of this DevTools dependency, automatically our server got restarted. Now I want to access my method. I created one REST controller. Inside the REST controller, my method is available. I want to access the method. Go to browser, then localhost :9090, just a slash. That's it. Our web application is ready. We are able to access our web application. I created one REST API. So whatever the project we are accessing now, this is called REST API. So user interface is not available. HTML files are not available. Direct REST API. This is called one distributed application. REST controllers are used to develop the distributed application. I'm getting some noise, some background. Any doubts? No. So I created one REST controller here and I'm able to access that REST controller. This REST controller is accessing by default. I want a security. I want security for my project. So currently, when I access this URL, I'm able to get the response from the REST API. I'm accessing my microservice basically. So every REST API is called as one microservice. But sir, we are not understanding what is this method, what is this REST controller. You will not understand because this is first project. So you will understand this REST controller, this get mapping after 1 month of time. So if you spend 1 month of time, then only you will get the clarity on what we are doing today. Okay. So you are just at the beginning level of the Spring Boot. We are trying to create the project. We are trying to understand project structure. We are trying to run the project. That's it. Our intention not to do the coding today. Our intention how to create the boot project, what is the structure, and what are the files available, how to run those files, how to run the project. That's it. And how it is working. Yes. Auto configurations. Okay. So you don't need to create any object. You don't need to call the method. When you just send the request, automatically that method got called. We are running the main method. JVM only will call the main method. Yes, that is same. We are running the program. When you run the program, main method will be called by JVM. Here also same thing. Inside that main method, JVM will run the main method. In that main method, we are calling the run method. Inside the run method, framework logic is available. No, we have not removed it, sir. It is available. I have added once again. If you remove this web starter, then you can't use this. This is coming from the web only. Okay. Now, currently I have added REST controller and I'm sending the request. I'm able to get the response. But now I want to add the security for my project. I want to add the security for my project. So just go here and add one dependency, Spring Boot Starter Security. Spring Boot Starter Security. So if I add the security, then what will happen? Our application will be secured by default. Let me stop the server. Whenever you change the pom.xml, let us refresh the project. Reload the changes. Refresh. Okay. Maven. Just update the Maven project. Whenever you add a new dependency, just to do the Maven update. Then let us go to the main class that is called start class of the Spring Boot. Run the application. Run as boot application. Application started. Go to browser, access the URL. Now what happened? Earlier we are able to access the message directly. Now am I able to access directly? No. So it is asking me to log in. Who created this login page? Is it our login page? Who created this login page? Spring Boot provided this login page for us. So this is called security. So if I give some wrong data, sign in. Yes. So that means framework is providing all this logic for us. They are giving the form. When we enter the data and submit the button, they are validating the credentials are valid or not. So the valid credential, valid username is user, password is available on the console. Using generated security password. Take this password, copy this password and use that password here. Click on sign in. My credentials are valid. That's why I'm able to access my message. But I don't like this password. I don't like this password. I want to change the password. If you want to change the password, we need to customize that. For that, go to properties file. So here you can configure spring dot security dot username. I'm giving the username as Ashok IT. Spring dot security dot user dot password. I will give that as ABC at the rate 123. That's it. Now it will validate the credentials. If the credentials given by the user matching with this, then only valid login, otherwise invalid login. I'm telling to the Spring Boot to check user credentials are matching with these credentials or not. So this is a properties file where we are doing the configuration. I'm configuring port number for the server. I'm configuring security credentials for the application. So if anybody want to access my application now, they should log in. If they give these credentials, then only it is a valid login. Otherwise, it is a invalid login. Can we try this now? Yes. Security changes are updated. Let me close this browser and open. Yeah. Refresh the project. Do the Maven update also. Yes. Now go to the application. Run as Java Spring Boot application. Earlier password printed on the console. Now password printing on the console, not printing on the console. Not printing. Why? I have customized. If you don't set the password, it will print on the console. But I am setting my password. Now no need to go for the default password. Now go to application access localhost colon 9090. Give the wrong data. No. Bad credential. So username is Ashok ID. Password something incorrect. Bad credentials. So correct data. Username Ashok IT. Password ABC at the rate 123. Click on sign in. Valid data. So if I give username password like this, then only I'm able to access my application. So how much code will be there in the background to do these things? 50 to 60 lines of code will be available. Say HTML page is available. Whenever you submit the form, take the form data, validate the credentials. If credentials are valid, go to our method. If credentials are invalid, display error message. 50 to 60 lines of code will be available in the background. That code is providing by the framework. That is called auto configuration. I have just added security dependency in the pom.xml. Then login page is coming to access our project. Are you able to follow me? Any confusion? No. So with this we are able to understand how to create our Spring Boot application, and we are playing with POM starters. We are adding the starters, we are removing the starters. Based on the POM starters only, auto configuration will come. So project folder structure. What is our project folder structure? Understanding Spring Boot project folder structure. Understanding Spring Boot project folder structure. Main Java, main resources, test Java, test resources, Maven dependencies, target folder, pom.xml will be available. We need to understand internals of the Spring Boot. What is the meaning of internals of the Spring Boot? What is that run method? What is happening in the run method? We need to do the postmortem on the start class. Okay. Internals of the Spring Boot means we need to act as a doctor now. We need to perform postmortem for start class. If you do the postmortem on the start class, then you will understand what is happening inside the Spring Boot application. What is happening in the run method? What is happening in the start class? You will understand that. Are you clear? Good. Any questions so far? Sir, this is just basic. In the real time, username password will not be available like this. They will be available in the database. This is just for your understanding purpose I configured. Jar files, yes. It will remove from your build path. It will be there in your system. Only from the project build path, it will remove your jar files. How to run the STS jar file again? This is my jar file. Okay. You click on this address bar. You type the CMD. You will get the CMD. Here jar file is available. Na? You just execute java space -jar space jar file. It will extract that jar. Yes. STS ID is coming. JVM will run dot class file only. There is no use of Java file. Java file you will write it, but for execution JVM will use dot class only. Without dot class JVM cannot run your project. Okay, definitely dot class file should be created. That is not for your understanding. That is for execution. JVM will execute the code by using dot class file only. No. JVM will take you will write the Java code. It will be compiled into dot class. JVM will take the dot class and will run the dot class. Yes. You can create the new project. For every topic, I will create a new project and I will add the dependencies. Okay. So today we just created our first Spring Boot project and we are able to understand project folder structure and we are able to add the POM starters and we are able to run our application. Okay. So we have added 3 dependencies now. What are those? Web starter, security starter, dev tools. What is the purpose of web starter? To develop a web application. What is the purpose of dev tools? To restart the project whenever there is a code change. What is the purpose of security starter? What is the purpose of security starter? To provide the security, to provide the authentication for our application, we are going to use the security starter. And if you add JPA starter and MySQL driver, it can connect with the database also. Database connections also will happen automatically in the Spring Boot when you add the starter. But before going to that, we need to understand start class internals. Application.java run method is available and boot application annotation is available. So we need to understand that start class. Once we understand the start class, then we will go for the auto wiring, IOC container, bean scopes, bean lifecycle, runners, banners. So next to 1 week, we will be understanding Spring Boot core concepts only. After this, we will go for data JPA to perform the database communications. Got my point? Good. Any other questions? Any questions, anyone? No. Whatever I am going to explain in the next session, Monday, that video is already there in the YouTube. Internals of the Spring Boot application. What is the run method? What is the start class in the Spring Boot? What is the Spring Boot application annotation? So if you go to our YouTube channel, those are short videos I have already uploaded. If you see Spring Boot run method, Ashok IT. Now here I have explained. 15 minutes I have explained Spring Boot start class run method execution details. 4 years back only I have uploaded that video. What is the run method in the Spring Boot and how it is going to work internally. And next one, there is one more point, that is, yeah, this is also run method somewhat video. Yeah, this is our video, Spring Boot start class run method. And the next one, Spring Boot application annotation. Spring Boot application in the Spring Boot in Ashok IT. So what is that? Spring Boot application. 15 minutes plus 15 minutes. So total in 30 minutes, I have explained start class in the Spring Boot. Okay. I will share those videos in the WhatsApp group today. Please go through those videos so that you will understand what is this annotation and what is this method. In the Monday session, I will ask the questions on the topic. What is the run method in the Spring Boot? What is the Spring Boot application annotation in the Spring Boot? So in the Monday session, you need to explain me those topics. Then I will continue the class. So that is the assignment for you people. 2 concepts you have to do as a assignment. Is it clear? Very good. Fine. Thank you guys. So tomorrow we don't have any class. We have next class on Monday.